Now I'm live. Take a ride down to the lake, see if anybody comes aboard. Doing a little check here to see if this live even works from down here. Everybody does the same thing on YouTube. It's like a little studio they got. Try to be a little different. I'm gonna go down here and make a video about aquatic plants and how they affect our fisheries. Probably make it a short. The shorts seem to get shared a little bit more. Getting alerts to my own alive. That's interesting. I doubt anybody will come on 12 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon, but you never know. Mr. Jim's house is coming along nicely over there. So far, so good. I don't have any problems. Hey, there's somebody. Thanks for joining, man. I'm just seeing if I can go live from the lake down here. Neighbor Jim's house is coming along nicely up there. And I've done this a few times on Instagram, but this is YouTube, so I'll talk about the lake. This is Rodman Reservoir, which is behind my house. Well, I had somebody for a second, now they're gone. Back to being alone. That's all right, I'm used to it. So as I was saying, this is Rodman. And I got lucky and got a cabin up the hill from this place. So I moved down here. See what's going on. A lot of water lettuce going on. Which brings me to my point that I wanted to come down here. There's a floating mat. That's not normally here. That's just a floating mat of stuff. There's mats that float around with the wind. So all this water lettuce was down on the other end of the lake, and it's getting blown back this way. That's water lettuce. This is water lettuce here. It's a floating plant. It hangs down. It has roots that hang underneath there, and it filters the water out. And this is a perfect example of what I wanted to talk about. There's a big misconception with aquatic plants. So when I say aquatic plants, cause problems in fisheries, everybody automatically goes to, yeah, but the habitat for the larval fish and the habitat. It's like a broken record of habitat, right? But what they don't understand is there's balance in everything in fisheries. We talk about the balance between predators and prey, like bass and bluegill, or bass and other species of fish. Well, here's a balance issue going on with plants. So yeah, the plant is a good habitat for the fish, but the plants, as they build up, are taking nutrients out of the water. Those nutrients, if the plants weren't here, would be available to plankton, to phytoplankton. They're also a plant. That's a microscopic algae that floats around in the water. That microscopic algae is the base of the food chain. So simply put, the more plankton you have, the more fish you have. The less plankton you have, less fish you have. It's measurable and it's noticeable, significantly noticeable when you start making those kind of measurements. The measurement scientists use is called chlorophyll A. So what you do is you dip out like a liter of water, and then they spin it in a centrifuge, and they get all the chlorophyll into the bottom of the test tubes, and they measure how much chlorophyll is there. They're not measuring the chlorophyll of aquatic plants like these. They're measuring the chlorophyll of the phytoplankton in the water. Right? That's the plant that matters for fish production. So you can literally tell how many pounds of fish will be per acre in a lake by the amount of chlorophyll that's in the water from the phytoplankton. All these plants, I'm gonna flip it back around. Now look, all these plants are taking that nutrients that chlorophyll that would boost that phytoplankton and boost that chlorophyll up, right? So as these plants increase, phytoplankton decreases. It's like a seesaw. It's balanced. So yeah, that's great, right? Oh yeah, that's great habitat, great habitat. That habitat's removing the food because you got phytoplankton. The next thing down the line is zooplankton. That's the primary source of food for larval fish. So as these plants increase and remove nutrients, that's reducing the phytoplankton, that's reducing the zooplankton. All those larval fish that are being born, all that great habitat they had to swim around in, fantastic. They got no food to eat. They die of starvation in 2 days. That's how plants negatively impact your fishery, right? And that's part that just goes just like that over all these dudes' heads. And I just keep going live and doing these things and talking about this stuff to try to, ooh-wee, there was a nice, looked like a bass right there. Right over there. Something just rolled right there. To get my rod. Anyway, so I'm down here to make a video in less than 1 minute explaining that concept. And I'm also down here going live just to see if I can go live because I get tired of doing it from the house. It's much nicer to do it out here, right? How's the audio? I don't see any questions. Can you guys, there's 3 people here. Can you guys hear me okay? Is the audio all right? Just a thumbs up or whatever will help a ton. There's a lot of wind and I'm trying to hold my hand so it blocks the mic on the phone. Audio is critical. I'm learning all these new tricks about making better videos, get better engagement on YouTube. YouTube's doing great. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, Flippin'. I've been practicing, so hopefully it'll be good. Good. Thank you, Gabriel. Appreciate that, man. If you guys have any questions about that fire, because going through this a couple of times helps me, you know, because like I said, to get my messages out, I got to do them in less than 1 minute to get the most people to see it, because the shorts get shared way more than everything. Oh, got one coming in. NCF Outdoors. Learning a lot. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. I really do. I don't know why, you know, this shouldn't be new information, you know, for any of us. It was certainly new information for me when I got to fishery school over 30 years ago now. 1990, well, 30 years ago exactly. I got there in 1993. And I was real lucky to have a great teacher there named Dr. Gilbert, Ronnie Gilbert. And he's kind of like, puts it down like I do, you know, he just tells you the truth. Oh, there's John. You're supposed to be working, John. John's a good dude. He's been following me a long time. Catching some nice fish too. And that's what it's about, man. Like, I'm not a competitive fisherman, you know. I don't care if you take all this information and go win the Bassmaster Classic. I hope you do, man. I wish you guys luck. I'm not into that kind of fishing, never have been. And yeah, Gabriel, that's a good question, man. I get that question a lot about books, and I really don't have any good book recommendations. When you go to fishery school, like, everybody thinks like what we talk about here is what they talk about at fishery school, and it is not, man. The first half of your life down there, you study fish that haven't been alive for a million years. The second half of your life, when you're like, okay, finally, we're gonna talk about some fish, is never bass fishing. Like, and they exclusively, like, they exclude it on purpose because so many dudes like talking about bass fishing, and all those people there are not bass fishermen at all. So Dr. Gilbert was one of the very few teachers that would even entertain any questions regarding largemouth bass with us. Like, there was, like, in some of the ecology school classes, they specifically told us, do not talk about bass, do not mention bass, do not write a paper about bass. We don't care about bass. So we care about darters and snails and ecology, and that's cool. I'm not knocking it, right? I'm not trying to be like that or anything. But at the same time, some of us, like, it's critically important to have had that bass information since we're in school to learn about fish and doing what we do for a living. Like me, information about bass would have been really helpful, and I didn't get it at a lot of those fisheries classes. So that's part of, I think, what makes, I've got kids that's major in fisheries that have never heard this stuff before, you know? And I think that's sad. So that's part of what this page is about, is to use bass fishing and something that people are interested in to bring these ideas of fisheries management that will positively affect all our fisheries, whether we're talking about trout or sunfish or brim or whatever, even saltwater fish. You know, these ideas can be, you can use something that people are interested in to express these ideas and help our fisheries move forward. Because I really feel like we're kind of stuck in the mud, just spinning our tires on a lot of these ideas. One of them is right here, right now, what I just talked about. The plants are good habitat, but they take away from zooplankton production. So you can have all the great habitat you want. If you've got no food for the fish to eat, they're gonna die. And that's the part that just, like I said, right over these dudes' head. A small amount of plants is good, but a large amount of plants negatively impacts the fish population. And that's something that I just can't seem to get through. Like, a lot of this stuff, man, I've had guys that are fishing guides with a big following of people telling me that the slime code on fish doesn't matter and that what I'm saying is stupid. And it's like, man, one of us is stupid for sure. And I guess that's the point. You can be a really good fisherman. You can win bass tournaments and do all things and not know one thing about what we cover here. That's been proven for 40 years, right? And that's part of the reason that it motivates me to do this, because I think what we learn here is critically important. And it probably won't help you win. I hope it helps people win bass tournaments. Maybe not, but it will help people handle fish better. It will help people understand the environment better. It will help people understand the food chain better. And I don't think any of that is bad. And honestly, I think the guys that pay attention to this stuff are at a significant advantage to the guys who don't. So that's a long way around your answer to your question, Gabriel. Do I have any book recommendations? Not really, no. I picked all this stuff up from one or two people in school that I was fortunate enough to have as teachers. And then I was also fortunate enough to work in this field for 30 years, managing small impoundments, ponds and small lakes, and then being able to articulate these ideas to like homeowner associations or private lake owners, to kind of strip all of the acronyms and terminology and things that people generally don't understand. I learned real fast that doesn't help you. Like, you can sit here and use big fancy words, and that's not helping regular people learn anything, because they don't understand those big fancy words. And hell, I didn't understand them either. I had to go look up all the crap they were talking about in the science dictionary, try to keep up. That school is a hard school to go to. And, you know, that's not the point, really. If you go to a fisheries conference, man, you'll see what I'm talking about. You'll be lost in there. These dudes will be talking about stuff that's just punching above my weight. You know, they're smart guys doing smart guy stuff. I just a pond manager, you know. I just got boots on the ground experience. And that's what I try to bring here. You know, just that this is how you do it in the field. This is not how you pass a fisheries test or whatever. Anyway, books are good, but I just bring that that field experience here. See, I'm just gonna walk around real quick and see if anything, see if we can see anything. There's a plant called pennywort. Can this thing zoom? Oh yeah, there we go. It's a kind of a round leaf. You see that right there? It's about that big around. That's called water pennywort. I've got dudes wanting me to do plant identification videos, so we can talk a little bit about that too. Floating plants. These are all the floating plants. Now that floating pennywort is an invasive, I think, from Europe. It's not supposed to be here. Water lettuce. This water lettuce will die pretty quickly. It's pretty cool out here today, and water lettuce will fall right out and die. So what's a mess this week goes away in about a month. It'll come back though. It's not nearly as bad as it was last season. This is my first full year down in Florida. But it's been really good for, learning about different fisheries. This tannic water's starting to clear up. Like, this water will get really clear all winter, much like our ponds. Rodman's 10,000 acres, so it's pretty big. But it's also got like a lot of water flow, a ton of water flow. It's more like as much a river as it is a lake. There's 7 springs in here, so you can find them. You can see the clear water coming right out of the ground. It's pretty neat. I've really enjoyed living down here, and I'm glad this live works from down here, because it's better, I think, than being stuck up there in the shop or the office all the time. I'll do some more of this, but now I got to make a 1-minute video about how aquatic plants negatively impact zooplankton production and make it interesting so people will listen. That'll be a challenge. It takes me a while to make these things. Oh, the ospreys are back up there. I can hear them. That's weird. They're out here a long time. And you know what else has come out here for a long time in the springtime? I'll shoot them with a bow, is tilapia. There's a big tilapia population, which brings up another great point. People want to talk about stocking tilapia all the time, like it's some kind of magic fish they can put in their pond or their lake that's going to make the bass grow. And that's not how that works either, because these tilapia are way too big for bass to eat. So when you have a fish like that, what is good forage turns into useless forage when it's too big for the bass to eat. The tilapia are going around feeding on whatever. Who cares? Maybe they're feeding on some zooplankton. Maybe they're feeding on aquatic insects. Maybe they're feeding on aquatic worms. Maybe they're whatever they're picking out of the environment and growing. If you've got like a 5-6 pound tilapia, that's 5 or 6 pounds of another fish that's forageable size that the bass could be eating. So yes, tilapia are good until they're not, until they're too big for bass to eat. And now they're taking up space. Again, balance, right? What is good becomes bad. And it works that way on many, many, many levels in our fisheries. The balance between bass and bluegill, bass and shad, or bluegill and shad, right? Gizzard shad work the same way. Gizzard shad are great forage until you got so many big gizzard shad and most of your bass are 1 pound. Then they're not great forage anymore. So you have to understand these things are complex. It's not something that you can summarize in 1 minute usually. It's really hard to do. And I don't know. Let me scroll back and make sure I didn't miss any questions. Nope, no misses. 5 folks. Hey, that's pretty good for the middle of the day on Wednesday, man. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I'm gonna hang for 1 more second. Oh, a 6th person. Hey, welcome aboard, man. If you got any questions for me, you can fire them in there. Just running my mouth as usual, talking about aquatic plants and balance and competing fish and balance. So I saw a lot of competition like on common carp, and people mess that up too. Like common carp and grass carp are 2 different species. They're not the same thing. Grass carp can't even process proteins in their stomach like a cow. You can't feed a cow protein, steak. You can't feed a cow meat, It just eats plants. That's how grass carp are. They don't eat eggs. they don't eat other fish. They will eat your fish feed, but you got to remember 50% of your fish feed's cornmeal. So that's why they like that. If you are feeding your fish and your carp are eating your feed, go to a higher protein feed. It's expensive, but that'll help keep the grass carp off them. But common carp, you know, that's different. They are rooting the bottom. They are eating insects. They are eating worms. All the things bluegill want to eat. So when you've got a 30-pound carp swimming around in a lake, that could be 30 pounds of bluegill, but it's not, because it's a carp there. Again, balance, right? And I've done this a bunch of times. Go into like a 20, 30 acre lake and you turn on the shocker and everything that comes up is like a 10+ pound carp. It's just one after another after another. So what do? Load them into the back of the truck, take them out, you know, just bury them. And all of a sudden, within like 6 months, the bluegill population comes back and you start seeing more fish around the edges. You start seeing more fish everywhere because you've freed up some biomass. You've removed those carp. Now they're not feeding and rooting the bottom, which you'll notice another thing when you do that, the lake won't look nearly as muddy, because common carp will muddy a lake up real bad. And when you go through with the shocker, now the shocker is not a permanent solution to that. It will revert back to that over time. You have to consistently harvest those carp out. You'll never get all the fish out with electrofishing boat. You'll never get all the fish out with rod and reel, no matter how hard you fish. Oh, Gabriel's coming back through. He said, awesome. Following for a while, and it's good information. Yeah, man, I got lucky on fishery school, bro. I was dating this chick. I was going to a college named Valdosta State down in South Georgia. And I went on a few dates with this girl whose dad was a fisheries biologist over on the coast. He was like more like a marine science kind of guy. But I went and saw him speak because I was about that time of my college career that I had to pick a major. And I mean, I don't know if you guys could tell, but I really wasn't all about school. I was there mostly because my folks wanted me to go, and just kind of half-assing it, you know, not really caring. There was no scholarships for me or anything like that academic-wise. I was just in school to be there. But when I saw that dude, I was like, man, that looks awesome. If I've got to go to college and major in something, it might as well be fish, right? Because I've always fished. I've been a bass fisherman for over 40 years. I was bass fishing when I was a little bitty kid. So that's what happened to me, man. I just got lucky, saw a dude, and then transferred to the University of Georgia and majored in fisheries. And was super lucky to have a professor like Ronnie Gilbert to teach me all this stuff. And Ronnie was awesome because I took the pond management class. As soon as I got to Georgia, I went in there and I got into the forestry school, and they were having that fall pond management class. Because in fisheries, like the school was big. Like Georgia's a big school, but the fisheries program was really small. I only graduated like 8 dudes in our major. So I got there, and most of the people in that class actually are graduate students, you know, getting upper level degrees in fisheries. And I was there as like a 4-year student, you know, just a bachelor's in science. And I took that class and we learned electrofishing, and we learned all this pond management stuff that we go over here every day. And I was just like, I was all about it, you know? So the next fall, because they only, like I said, it was a small program, they only taught that class once a year. The next fall, when Ronnie had the class again, I asked him, can I come help? Can I come run the shock boat? Can I pull the seine? Because I wanted to get more experience. I had an idea about managing ponds around Atlanta because I was a lifeguard, and the company that I worked for had a lot of pools that had ponds right behind it. So I went to all those homeowners associations and told them, hey, I'm learning how to take care of these ponds in school. Would you guys be interested in having like a pond manager like you have a pool manager? And they were all about it. So I started making money before I ever left Georgia. I was making side money on ponds, and that's what led me here. That's what got me my business. So I knew that I needed to know as much about ponds and look at as many ponds as I could And Dr. Gilbert let me like basically be a TA for the class when I wasn't even a graduate student. So for the next 2 years, because it took me 3 years at Georgia to get I was in college 5 years. But for the next couple falls, then Dr. Gilbert let me run the boat and go on those, be in that class and help with that class when I wasn't even in the class. So that was awesome of him to do that for me. And I tried to help him out, you know, as much as I could, and be like I was like an unofficial TA, I guess, for a few years. That means teacher's assistant. Dave's coming down. I'm gonna let you guys go. Thanks for following and all the positive engagement.